know that we have to think differently about our work and learn from what has happened to date, and then continue to press forward with continued improvement. As you can see, we have a very specific priority area of the 5 we've laid out in Tennessee Succeeds, our early foundations in literacy. So what you're going to hear today is directly from feedback from you around what do you continue to need as we push forward with our early foundations and literacy goals. There's some historical context of where we've been, what we've already done as a state, and where we continue to go. On the document, you see multiple of the components that have really led us to the Teaching Literacy in Tennessee document highlighted there in red. We'll talk about the timeline. We started with the Setting the Foundation report. That led us to a vision for reading proficiency, and then just this past year we put out the Building the Framework report. Teaching Literacy in Tennessee has come out of that, and then we believe that the alignment with the RTI Squared Manual will be important as we begin implementation. So with the Setting the Foundations report. Actually, in late 2015, early 2016, we put our first report that gave a look at what have we been doing as a state, what do we feel like has worked, what has continued to be a challenge. And in this report, we laid out these 4 recommendations. In particular, I want to point out a couple of them. We knew that supporting literacy instruction needed to be pulled out of only thinking about the skill-based competencies, and it needed to grow into the broader context of comprehension and certain vocabulary building. That was really the impetus for a lot of the work that we have done over this past year as we focused on the interactive reading labs and the digging deeply into text to get at that broader comprehension. We also did a lot of work in this first year to build the campaign around Read to Be Ready. And so the 2016 report led to an event in February 2016. This event was a place where we put forth these 5 chapters of work and some of the learnings that we have had today. Early literacy matters. It's not too late, meaning if students are not reading, there is an ability for students to catch up with that intentionality. Reading is more than just sounding out words, which goes to the concept that I was mentioning earlier of how important it is to build those foundational skills alongside and parallel to the knowledge-based competencies that we're going to talk about today. That teacher knowledge and classroom practice are critical, which really led to our work around the Read to Be Ready coaching network. And that ultimately it takes a community focused on reading, which is why we have done a lot of work this past year and even more so this summer with building out the Read to Be Ready summer grants with 11,000 students being served this summer. The next report in 2017, we put forth, it was Building the Framework. Again, digging deeper. What we did to actually create this report was go into classrooms, and we looked at over 100 classrooms and in that K-3 space to see what we're doing in terms of comprehension, in terms of book selection, what were they doing in terms of the structure of the classroom environment, how were they using time, and how they aligned ultimately to the standards. What did the assignments look like? What were the questioning sequences? And led us to the Setting the Foundations report summary, and you see some of those items on the screen. That students need more opportunities to practice their foundational skills within these authentic experiences. That needs to be an intentional selection of text that builds students' knowledge and vocabulary, not struggling with standards-aligned tasks, and there needs to be more work in that area, and that this strong question sequence is important to help students ultimately understand and attain the content in these high-quality texts. These sort of components led us to work around defining what reading proficiency is. I mean, to date, this particular item has been out for almost a year, but we make sure that you know that this was developed through a series of meetings with high-quality individuals that were both higher education and districts and in the department to develop our Tennessee definition of what reading proficiency is. What you see on the screen is the definition that we're working from as we develop our professional development, as we developed our tools and documents, and certainly as we're developing our assessments. That proficient reading is accurately, fluently, and independently reading a wide range of content-rich, age-appropriate, and complex text. It's easy to construct interpretations and arguments through speaking and listening, strategically using and employing our comprehension strategies, developing vocabulary, and building knowledge about the world. This particular definition has guided the work that you're going to see today, and I do want to turn it over to our Assistant Commissioner from our Office of Early Learning and Literacy, Elizabeth Alves, and she's going to kick us off into some of the specifics of the Teaching Literacy in Tennessee document, and we are so excited to dig into it over the next 45 minutes or so.
Thank you, Commissioner McQueen. I am delighted to be here this afternoon joining with all of you and sharing the release of our Teaching Literacy in Tennessee document. We want to point out that this document is really a how-to guide for teachers and coaches and principals. It provides an instructional framework and practical guidance to help teachers implement high-quality Tier 1 literacy practices that will develop all of our K-3 students into proficient readers. It's important for us to note that Tennessee's approach is informed by research from the field and doesn't adhere to any one specific approach, such as balanced literacy or whole language or phonics first. Additionally, our approach recognizes the flexibility that's needed to plan instruction that develops our students' world knowledge and vocabulary while remaining anchored in our Tennessee standards and the needs of our students. We want to highlight that the release of Teaching Literacy in Tennessee is just the beginning of this work. We will continue to add resources, materials, and additional trainings to support this work as we move through the summer and into next year. So let's dive in and take a look at the document. We want to make sure that everyone understands our theory of action. As you heard the Commissioner talk about the findings from our assessments here in Tennessee about classroom instruction and the recommendations that have come from those two reports. We are reflecting those recommendations in a theory of action. We believe that all of our students need daily opportunities to build both skills-based and knowledge-based competencies. That is done through opportunities for students to engage a high volume of reading and listening to complex texts that are either on or beyond grade level. Opportunities for our students to think deeply about and respond to text through speaking and writing opportunities, and opportunities to develop our students' craft and skill as writers. And we also recognize the importance that foundational skills play in this instruction, and that they must be taught both explicitly and systematically, but also should be connected to authentic text opportunities. And we believe that if we provide an environment that provides these opportunities, that we will certainly meet or exceed our goal of having 75% of our third graders reading on grade level by 2025. So at this point, we're going to pause, and we want to engage you in the conversation as we consider this theory of action. So what are some of the instructional practices that you have already started to use that embrace this theory of action with your students? And we have Erin Phillips, who is a reading coach consultant in the South Central region, and she's joining us this afternoon from Coffee County. Erin, do you have someone there who would like to share some of the practices they've started implementing this year?
Yes, ma'am. I have Robin Watkins with me. She's the district Read to Be Ready coach for Coffee County, and she would like to answer your question in regards to the theory of action.
So they've worked really hard on the interactive read aloud practices in the classroom. And what we've seen our teachers beginning to do is that they are being very purposeful about their selection of complex text. We hear that they are 2 grade levels or above interactive read aloud, and also we've looked really strongly at the complexity rubric and making sure that our text go along with that. We've been intentional about planning embedded think clouds and questioning and vocabulary so that teachers are able to model their thinking in the complex text to build students' capacity to do that as well. Questions are scaffolded to lead the kids to think deeper and deeper. And we've been intentional about selecting vocabulary that opens up world knowledge for kids. So we've worked hard to develop tasks that require speaking, listening, and writing in response to a text. We're doing it daily with our interactive read aloud, trying to help kids really begin to move further and further into the text. Our work with those RAs and anchor texts are working with text sets all together in reading and independent reading and things like that. So we're developing enduring understandings and we're building world knowledge around concepts.
Thank you so much for those insights. I think you've actually read this document already. So much of what you talked about is reflected in our document, and I think as we go through the rest of the webinar, all of you will see many of the components that Robin mentioned in her remarks. I want to remind each of you that this is an opportunity to engage with us. We encourage you all of you who have joined this afternoon, to participate in this discussion. If you have specific questions or comments, please use the chat box in the webinar or tweet us at TNEDU using the hashtag TLITTN. So continue. We want to spend a few moments just defining what we mean by skills-based competencies and knowledge-based competencies. As you, the Commissioner, mentioned, it's important that we develop both of these competencies simultaneously as we provide high-quality instruction for our students. So to define these terms, we refer to skills-based competencies as being constrained skills in that they're learned completely and are universally needed to read and write. And some examples of those are listed on this slide here. Concepts about print, spelling, phonological awareness, and skills of that nature. In contrast, our knowledge-based competencies are unconstrained, meaning that they develop across a lifetime and are not identical for all readers. And examples of those competencies would be vocabulary and comprehension. These competencies support our students in creating meaning from text. They're very important to be developed together as we provide daily classroom instruction. So I'm going to turn it over to our Executive Director of Reading, Becky Cox, to dive a little deeper.
So as we continue to further our discussion, we'll start by talking about the Literacy Unit Design Framework, which is an anchor. It's one of the anchors within this document. As we think about the Literacy Unit Design Framework, this framework highlights the ways that teachers can create the opportunities that are outlined in our theory of action by utilizing literacy-based instructional strategies, multiple sources of data, and differentiation to provide effective Tier 1 instruction for all learners. And then the findings that were mentioned earlier with setting the foundation and building the framework, we wanted to develop Tier 1 literacy practices that increase students' access to complex text and to build their world knowledge and vocabulary, as mentioned earlier, while continuing to support explicit and systematic foundational skills instruction. Those are really important words with foundational skills, that we have explicit and systematic instruction and that connection to connected text. In this, we want to ensure that our literacy instruction is providing a balance of both skills-based and knowledge-based competency instruction. The academic standards should be integrated throughout the unit design. Teachers should select concepts based on knowledge requirements that are contained in the grade level content content standards, then teachers should select specific ELA standards once texts and tasks are chosen to support students' reading. Other students, as you see on the graphic here, students should always be the heart of our instructional decision-making. Teachers should consider what standards, instructional strategies, and supports are needed to ensure that all students meet or exceed grade level expectations. So as we start to go deeper into the unit design, let's talk specifically about concepts, enduring understandings, and essential questions. So the design framework begins with the identification of concepts that will become the foundation for the unit. The selection of the concepts is guided by the Tennessee academic standards, including ELA, science, social studies, and arts. Standards provide a general guide for the types of knowledge students should gain in their respective grade levels. Then, based on these concepts, teachers determine enduring understandings and generate essential questions that prioritize the learning around the concepts. So we have text selection. Text selection is a primary consideration for the unit design. Teachers select multiple texts that reflect the expectations of grade level standards and support the acquisition of conceptual knowledge and the enduring understandings. Text should be worthy of students' time and attention, be of exceptional craft and quality, and provoke deep thinking based on information from text. The process of text selection is supported by the instructional shifts, which I'm sure you've heard of, including regular practice with complex text and their academic language, reading and speaking grounded in evidence from text, both literary and informational, and building knowledge through content-rich nonfiction. And I just want to say here, I know that there's been a lot of work in the Read to Be Ready Coaching Network around teachers building text sets around concepts for the purpose of building conceptual knowledge. And we'd like to go back out in the field. Ashley Kelly is our West Reading Coach Consultant, and she has worked with Sir Jackson in Dyersburg Primary School this year. Jennifer and Ashley, in the next few minutes, give us a little bit of an insight about how you're using text connected around central concepts and how that has impacted your students.
Jennifer should be able to hear Jennifer Jackson now. If not, you can hit *6, and that will unmute you. Oh, there you are.
This is Jackson. Since we've developed text sets around a central topic, we've noticed that all of our students, regardless of their reading level, they feel successful, engaged, and all working to build common knowledge together. And when we use those connected texts during interactive read-alouds and shared reading, then our students are exposed to information about topics on their current reading level and then 1 to 2 grade levels above their current reading level. What we've noticed is that these sets have really helped to improve and increase the vocabulary that our students are using, not only in their oral language, but also in their writing every day.
We appreciate those insights, and I mean, I think you shared with your comments that students are at the center, they're feeling successful, and they're learning more about their world and are able to share more about it through their speaking and reading. Thank you so much. I would like to turn to Melody Collier. Ashley's also worked with Melody and Dyersburg Intermediate School this year on building text sets around a central concept. Melody and Ashley, briefly share how writing third grade units using text sets impacted your students and teachers.
Feel free to go *6 to share. And Ashley.
I'm Melody Collier, and I'm the curriculum coordinator for grades 3 through 5 in a Read to Be Ready coach. Write grade units using texts that are connected around a central concept has empowered our teachers to bring more things into their lesson. They've had a seamless integration of science and social studies with their language arts curriculum. It's given more authentic opportunities for speaking and learning, which in turn is seeing an increase in student comprehension as well as vocabulary usage. It gives us the opportunity to unify those daily lessons, minimize some transition times, and offer a connected experience for students and teachers. We've seen them use that vocabulary across the curriculum.
Well, your words empowering teachers, and it sounds like students are being equipped, empowered with with the connectedness that's happening. Thanks so much for sharing, Melody. So this time we want to remind you to continue to share with us on Twitter, and as you have questions, please list those in our chat box within WebEx. So let's continue to think about the framework and progress to end-of-unit tasks. As we continue to consider the unit design framework, end-of-tasks allow students to demonstrate their knowledge, their understanding of text, and ELA standards that they are acquiring. These assessments of the unit are rigorous and require students to move beyond recall to apply their learning in authentic and meaningful ways as they demonstrate grade level expectations. And it's so good to hear that from the field, how those connections and how that authenticity is really helping our students. We think about the end of the unit tasks, creating end in mind for instruction, and we think through the lesson sequence. Today's ELA standards offer multiple strands, including reading, language, reading, speaking, listening, and foundational skills. Teachers develop lesson sequences that build in complexity and support students in gaining enduring understanding by using multiple instructional strategies. All of the strands are integrated within the sequence of lessons to support students in developing both skills-based and knowledge-based competencies based on the text and student needs. Teach knowledge-based competencies through listening, reading, speaking, and writing. They also explicitly and systematically teach the foundational skills and give students ample opportunities to practice those skills in connected text. And writing, for sure. About that those connected text opportunities. So as we transition now to daily tasks, standards-aligned daily tasks allow students to demonstrate their developing knowledge incrementally and how they're able to transfer new learning in rich and authentic ways in the end-of-unit tasks. These units connect to develop a cohesive scope and sequence that ensures students have access to and guaranteed and viable Tier 1 curriculum. So I want to pause here and contemplate this framework and those different elements that we just heard about. I want to send it out to Melissa Johnson, one of our Mid-Cumberland Reading Coach consultants, and she's worked alongside Lebanon Special School District to design rigorous end-of-unit tasks and daily tasks that are aligned to grade level expectations. So I believe that we're connecting with Nancy Ash. Nancy, as you think about ways that you've worked to support the tasks, how does this support engagement with students?
Dial *6, you'll be able to unmute your line to share. Again, *6, Nancy, if you are out there and can hear us.
We'll check in with Julie Whitefield. We may be having some technical difficulties in Lebanon, so let's check in if Julie or Melissa unmute and connect with us here?
Is out there, but again, it's *6 from your phone. That'll unmute your line only to be able to share with the group.
So it sounds like maybe having some technical difficulties. So Lebanon, feel free to chat in, and we may be able to reconnect here later. And we want to continue this conversation again. Reminder, you can post on Twitter at tn.edu, #TeachLitTN. As we think about the unit work, and then think about all of the instructional decisions that are made before, during, and after instruction, we're excited to share this graphic and how these different elements work together. As teachers utilize the framework to design units, they develop literacy blocks that support students in all strands of the Tennessee EA, in all of the strands of the standards: foundational skills, speaking and listening, reading and writing. The graphic that is shown on the slide illustrates the integration of the standards to be addressed, the instructional strategies to be used, and the grouping structures that teachers incorporate as they plan for literacy instruction on any given day. Teachers will not use all of these instructional strategies in a single day, and the timing for each will vary based on needs. Rather, teachers should flexibly select from multiple instructional strategies. For example, interactive read aloud, you can see there, shared reading, interactive writing, as they design a high-quality Tier 1 literacy block that reflects the expectations of grade-level standards. Excited within this document to be able to share a vignette that illustrates one first-grade teacher's literacy block. The vignette provides think alouds that detail the teacher's instructional decision-making. Links are also provided throughout the digital document to take teachers and leaders to additional resources to support professional learning on the practices outlined. So we really hope this vignette brings to life the design framework and the instructional decisions that teachers make. And we're excited to hear your feedback around the vignette and how that's supporting you in the field. So turn this back over to Dr. Elizabeth Alves as she continues to think through before, during, and after instruction.
Becky. So you'll notice that within the Teaching Literacy in Tennessee document, you will find explanations of the key decisions that teachers need to make before, during, and after instruction. The first section is organized through the use of the questions a teacher might ask his or herself as they plan for each component of the literacy unit design framework. These guiding questions are: what concepts will be the focus of my unit? What standards will be integrated within my lesson? And which instructional strategies will I use? This planning process emphasizes flexibility in utilizing multiple instructional strategies throughout the literacy block. Teams will make decisions about which strategies they will use and the order in which they will use them throughout the planning process. On this slide, you will see there that we also have a during instruction component. And this section highlights some of the practices that teachers should engage in during their literacy instruction. All of these practices support teachers in generating the types of opportunities laid out in our theory of action. Some include structuring a positive classroom environment, promote student engagement, and differentiating instruction to meet student needs. And finally, after instruction, teachers reflect on the lesson. We provided a tool to support educators as they consider what went well and identify areas to strengthen. This reflective process can assist Tennessee teachers in getting better as we work to make the changes to literacy instruction that will support all students in becoming proficient readers, thinkers, and writers. to bring us to closure, I will transition back to our commissioner, Dr. McQueen.
Right. Thank you. I hope that you will begin to now dig into the document itself. I do want to highlight again the video. It's actually in the middle of the document. It walks through thought process, planning cycle, instruction, reflection of a teacher, and it would be a very useful document to use just within itself for professional learning or professional development session over the summer, or as you are in your PLCs going into the fall. So I hope that will be a priority for you as you walk through the document and think how that vignette reflects your own work. Also note that what we are putting forth today is just the beginning of multiple webinars in the summer learning series, but also this will continue to be a growth process for us as we add additional items to this document over time. So this is a living and breathing document. I want to start with where we are in the summer learning series and then some additional items that we hope to add to the document over the coming months. We have a session on June 8th on interactive read-alouds where we will dig deeply into what we're currently doing as a state and the great examples that we already have and what we're learning from how we can go deeper. Session 3 is on shared reading in July. Session 4 is August 10th. It's supporting literacy for a range of learners that you have in your classrooms. And Session 5 is generally the framework for teaching literacy that will kick off some regional sessions in September. We are also looking at additional supports and supplemental materials specific on teaching English language learners, how you can best think about assessments, and certainly the integration of RTI in the work that you're doing. These summer learning series are essentially going to be at your discretion. You will make the decision whether you engage in them or not. We are hopeful you will engage so you can hear this firsthand, but we will be taping all of the summer webinars, and you'll have the availability of those later as you choose to engage with them either individually or in professional learning sessions. I want to also announce some really exciting work that's just hot off the press, and I've gotten the okay to announce it in this webinar. We are embarking on an exciting project in conjunction with the Read to Be Ready efforts. Our coach consultants and ELA consultants are going to be working over the next several months to create 2 units. Becky did a beautiful job talking about the units, 2 units per grade level for K through 3 for reading instruction that are aligned with our new science standards. Within these units, we will have robust text sets, aligned questions, and aligned assignments or tasks that help us see whether the students are actually gaining what we hope they are gaining. These text sets that we continue to be asked about, we are going to be putting together this initial text set creation with units for pre-K through 3. They do build onto our science standards. Let me know, though, these units will not replace science instruction. Let me again. The unit is not meant to replace science instruction. We expect the units will build students' knowledge of the aligned science standards as students build vocabulary and learn to read. This is a great example of building those knowledge-based competencies through the work that we're doing in science. This also provides a great opportunity to supplement that science work with hands-on inquiry-based learning during your classroom science time as you build this knowledge during your reading block. The first text set or unit was created over the summer for fall implementation, and the second will be developed through the fall for a winter implementation. We know that you will be excited to receive those and hopefully integrate those as you think about your lessons and your units for next year. I also would be remiss if I did not say thank you to the Read to Be Ready coaches across the state who are doing this work every day alongside you, and so I want to say thank you to those of you who are tuned into the webinar. I appreciate the work that you are doing specifically as we go into what will be year 2 of our Read to Be Ready work. With that, I believe we are at the end. We do have an option with our chat box to continue to hear from you. We want to get your questions and hear your comments and continue to tweet with us at hashtag TeachLitTN, and then certainly our Twitter handle at the department is @TNEDU. We have some questions from the chat box that we want to attempt to answer in the few minutes that we have left. The first question we've gotten through chat, teacher, is can we have a suggested list of text? Great question. Becky, I'll let you start with that, and then I want to follow up with a little bit more about the text set.
Well, as we think about the text, I think what we're really wanting to look at is thinking through construction of a quality text set around the concept. So as you think about the unit design, we need to think about the concept that we want to build and think through the text that will meet the purpose. So we're really excited to have Commissioner McQueen share that hot off the press exciting news that will start to thinking through. And so we have the example that is given in Teaching Literacy in Tennessee, but we'll have some other examples that are being created as well to help to support the process of creating text sets.
Great. The suggested list can be developed over time, and so we'll think about what that might look like as we go into Q2, what texts are being used and the results of the usage of the text at different grade levels and the assessments of those. So we'll continue to think about what that might look like. Of course, we do believe that we will be able to give some extraordinary examples through the set creations that go along with these units. We had another question about that, so let me respond to that question. The question is, what is the timeline for new text sets? When can teachers access and use them? Again, the first set or unit that we will be specifically creating will be available for fall implementation in the second as we go into the winter or spring semester. So we will have those available to you this coming year, first stage in the fall, second stage in the winter. Teachers have access to those immediately upon the creation of those. Another question, Becky, I'm going to turn this one over to you. When will there be more info about writing, both interactive and shared writing?
That's a great question because we really want to have the reciprocity between reading and writing happening. As you saw, we want students to be reading about text, thinking about text, speaking of text, and writing about text. You'll see that come out clear in Teaching Literacy in Tennessee. So as part of the Read to Be Ready Coaching Network materials, we have interactive writing and speaking as part, interactive writing and speaking as part of one of the topics for next year's coaching materials. And we also will look at deeper follow-up, the topics for the summer learning series, but we envision there will be more topics that go beyond the summer learning series into next year as well. So I envision that this will be a highly sought after topic for us to consider and to go deeper with in a follow-up.
Great. We can take questions, so continue to share. The next question that we will put forth is, will framework for teaching literacy information be embedded in the coaching network training?
So we envision this framework working with the, part of my work is alignment of literacy practices across the department. So definitely I see this framework will be very supportive of work across our department, including with the Read to Be Ready Coaching Network. Any other additional thoughts around the room?
So that in September, we will be doing a deep dive on the use of this framework, and we'll provide some additional guidance and support at that time.
Right. We do have a question about the revised science standards. So part A of this question is, when will the revised science standards be available? Those are available now. You can actually do a Google search on the Tennessee State Board of Education site and go directly to the new science standards now. Those have been passed by the state board and are posted. If you look through those, you will see the nature of more problem solving, the real shift in instructional work that will need to take place as we transition to these standards. And so we feel like this connection to creating this moment with our literacy block will be really successful as we build that content knowledge as part of the literacy block and then use that time for science instruction to be around hands-on work, experiments, and the problem solving that will go along with these standards. So please take a look at those standards. For clarification, the new science standards are implemented in 2018-19. Next year we'll have implementation of math and English language arts. The following year, 2018-19, will be implementation of the new science standards. Next question, part B, when will we know what science standards and units will cover? That is a great question. Those will be in development this summer. And so, again, as you are going into the fall semester, we will definitely let you know what science standards are covered, and you will have those new units at your disposal. So that will be forthcoming as you are coming out of your summer vacation. The next question is, can you share what text will be used? Would like to purchase books. So I'm assuming this is a question about what text will be used as part of the text set creation in these units. The answer is that will be in process. So we will have that available to you again as we go into the fall semester, and certainly the list of the text being used would be provided for you, and so if there was something that you wanted to purchase, that would be available at that point. Take another question, and this question is, how will the reading standards and text set apply to, I think it's the early learning model strands, if I'm reading that right, the ELM strands. So, Elizabeth, would you like to answer that?
Yes. So as we look at our early learning standards, they're very carefully and closely aligned with our K-12 standards for English language arts. As you heard the Commissioner mention, we will be developing these unit text sets for pre-K as well as for K-3. So we will have those model units designed, one in the fall and the second in the spring. So we see this work as really a part of the continuum, really from birth to grade 3 and beyond. So we will be doing a lot more to clearly articulate that alignment and make sure that our pre-K teachers and our early childhood teachers across the state have the support and resources available to them as well.
Yeah, I appreciate the question, and please know that we were intentional based on feedback from you that pre-K is part of what we are doing in this whole spectrum of improving literacy, and so these units and text sets will also be made available for pre-K, and so that's intentional based on feedback from you. All right, we have another question. The question is, as we continue to revise standards, is there a shift in emphasis for unit-based teaching versus the basal approach to instruction? I will start that answer, and if anybody else wants to chime in. The emphasis is really not on either. The emphasis is on making sure that students have the access to high-quality text, whether that is through a basal, whether that's through some type of informational text, whether that's through authentic text that you have available to students. So the emphasis is on that high-quality text, and that the work that we need to do to make sure students are reading on grade level or being exposed to reading even above grade level, that allows them to access that content knowledge that will help them access what they're reading, quite frankly, and certainly the other content that they will be exposed to, while we are weaving in the foundational skills that are very critical to success for students. So really not unit-based teaching versus basal. We believe that either of those approaches could potentially actually move a student to success in reading, but the intentionality is around what is the selected text and how you specifically using to move all students. Anyone else want to add anything to that?
I think the words intentional and purposeful are really important with this. I definitely agree. There are multiple paths to get to a destination, and we understand our purpose around what we're teaching, and we make congruent choices to meet that purpose. And so I think you'll find with the framework that there could be a variety of options that are chosen for materials and supports that we provide our students.
I have a specific question, but I'm not 100% sure exactly what it's asking. It says questioning and then focus on depth of knowledge framework.
I wonder if it might be related to Webb's depth of knowledge. As we think about web knowledge, and I think about Karen Hess and Karen Hess's work with Bloom's taxonomy, higher level questioning, and Webb's depth of knowledge that gets to deeper activity. And so, yeah, I think when we think about end of unit tasks, we're looking at building rigor and having authenticity and helping students understand what they're doing, what they're doing, having an audience, a real audience to speak to, write to. So I definitely think that the thought of focusing on depth of knowledge and building that rigor to meet that grade level expectation is extremely important in this work.
Yeah, add to, I think we're getting at your question. If we're not, please send it again. We're not getting at what you're asking. But it does feel like how we have thought about this building of knowledge, which we have seen as a weakness in some of our classroom walkthroughs and certainly based on feedback we're getting from our data, is that questioning does need to be built to what knowledge or what purpose you have. And so that intentionality around questions is very evident in our team rubrics or coach, whatever model you're using. The questioning sequencing and the building of knowledge through questioning is a significant portion of our knowledge framework. And so we want to continue to develop within these unit examples as well as in our coaching network a better knowledge of how to question to move students to the knowledge base that we need.
So a follow-up question that has come is it using depth of knowledge or Bloom's Bloom's taxonomy? Thank you for the word. So I think it's not a versus. I think it's kind of, they're both getting at the same definition of we want to get to higher level, deeper, rigorous thought. And when we think about what students are listening to and reading, that helps them produce that learning through their speaking and reading. So we want them to be able to get to deeper levels of thought so they can talk about what they're reading and listening to, and they can write about it. So I don't think that's an or. I think that's possibly thinking through that knowledge and Bloom's taxonomy.
I would add that both of these in different ways are trying to get at the depth that we're requiring. Webb's depth of knowledge, I believe, is a very useful tool, though, in how you push the conversation in literacy. And so if you're not familiar with Webb's depth of knowledge and the usage of that in terms of the creation of your units and plans, we would encourage you to look at that more closely. We have another question. Will the department or the TDOE do a qualitative and quantitative analysis on it, like on text set list, to teachers a starting point for text selection? Let me read that again. Will the department do qualitative and quantitative analysis on text set list to give teachers a starting point for text selection?
So as we're looking at this unit design and text set, part of our thinking does need to be around the text complexity triangle, thinking about qualitative aspects of text, quantitative the text and the reader. And this is work that we've really been intentionally focused on during the Read to Be Ready coaching network and in those materials. So I think definitely we will carry on the focus of the types, be purposeful with the types of text that we choose. So I think that will play into the work that we do with the unit design and text sets.
All right, a question just came in. Can we build units aligned to the new social studies standards? The answer is absolutely yes, we can. We certainly do not have social studies standards in final format, and they are not going to be implemented until the year 1920. That is the current plan based on this analysis of where we are with standards. So we have the two standard sets for next year, EL and math, the following year science, and then the year after that, 1920, would be social studies implementation. But we are absolutely looking toward the potential of integrating the social studies standards in another series of unit development, potentially the following year. We've not decided that yet. We're going to see how the first analysis in your on the first set of units through the science integration goes first, and then we will look at the possibility of social studies. But like the suggestion, it is definitely on our radar. That you have? All right, we're almost at time. You asked some fantastic questions. We hope you will continue to ask those questions. But most importantly, please dig into the document itself and be a part of the webinars through the learning series this summer. And we will continue to be putting out additional documents associated with this, resources, and as we just announced, these new and text sets that will serve as exemplars and examples for each grade level, pre-K through 3, and look forward to continuing to talk with you more about this as we go throughout the summer. I do need to remind you that the document that I just referenced is on the website, so please go to the Department of Education website. You should see a scrolling box at the top. The document is linked to that scrolling box. If you're on Twitter, I have just tweeted that out, as well as other people that have been on this webinar have tweeted that document out. So make sure you begin to read that very, very quickly as you're beginning to think about next year and the work that you're doing with our students in our elementary grade. Thank you again for being on our webinar today. Again, this has been recorded and it will be posted on our website as well.